morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents of pop culture just to see how those incidents may or may not affect our daily lives. Listen, y'all make sure y'all hit that like button and subscribe. And thank you so much for getting me to 1,200 subscribers. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate this. Listen, what I wanted to go okay. First of all, shout out to Miss Marvel, who is on Twitter X. She led me to this article because we had been on Twitter going over the Jonathan Majors information and things like that, and also I covered the Justin Baldoni Blake Lively lawsuit. And I have become probably since the Jonathan Majors case, I have been fascinated about public relations. I've been fascinated particularly about crisis management in public relations. So, please don't tell me I am. Oh, geez. No, my computer has stuck. Let's see if we can do something like this. I hate this. Hold on, y'all. Because my computer has been freezing up lately. Oh, I don't want to force quit it. I just want it to stop. Hold on, let me see if this will help. I don't want to force quit it. I just want to get to my next scene. All right, hold on, y'all. Hold on. All right, I think I'm back. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. I'm back. I had to let it restart again. I don't know what's going on over here because my computer has been showing out lately. All right. So let me share my screen real quickly. Again, I want to shout out to Miss Marvel. We were talking about Justin Baldoni, the Blake Lively case, and also we have been talking about the Jonathan Majors case, and I have become fascinated with PR and how PR is used and what they do. And so what I wanted to go here, let me share my screen because you know I love a good PowerPoint. So we want to talk about crisis management when stars need PR help. Now, we are very much familiar with public relations and things like that. If you have watched any episode of the first season of Scandal, this is basically what she did for the politicians. I do think she did had some movie stars or anything like that. But this is basically what she did. And her character was based on a woman who was in public relations, who did this kind of crisis management for the stars and the politicians and things like that. So we want to kind of go over it. Now, my understanding in regards to crisis management and all of this other stuff is, let's go ahead and get through here. So we're going to talk about what it is. It's to protect and defend a client's reputation and brand image during a crisis by managing communications, addressing concerns, and controlling the narrative to mitigate damage and rebuild trust. So please be aware of that is what the role of a crisis management PR firm is. It is to protect and defend a client's reputation and brand during a crisis by managing the communications, addressing the concerns, and controlling the narrative. Now, we see this all the time. Let me put you up here real quick, Tracy, so I can say thank you. Thank you so much for my 1,200 subscribers. I really do appreciate it. And that has been a big thing if you've noticed in these recent cases, because whoever controls the narrative controls the public trust. I mean, let's just be real. If your crisis management team does not control the narrative through your interviews, through your social media and how you're perceived on social media, if they don't control it through any of those types of options, if something happens, they're supposed to jump in and try to restart and recreate the narrative. And we see this with the Blake Lively, because Blake Lively's image in the public is not so good. So she's hired a new crisis management team. I think his last name is Shapiro. And his job is that to rebuild her image, to mitigate any damage that's been going on, and to control the narrative. And we see that happening. One of the ways that we see that that's happening is all of the content creators who cover the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni case. And if they cover this case and they are pro Justin Baldoni, they will put stories out or try to change the algorithm so that a lot of well, first they want to mitigate the damage. So they're going to go through and try to make sure that they suppress in the like on the Google searches and things like that. And I think I did briefly a video talking about how they do that through Wikipedia. They start changing the Wikipedia page, making it more positive. Once you make the Wikipedia page more positive, the algorithm, the SEO, will start being more positive towards the client. So that's what you do. You change certain wordings. So if I don't know, let's say Blake Lively is a heifer, comes up, keeps continually come up, you try to change the algorithm so it'll suppress the heifer word and not have it in connection with Blake Lively by putting other words like Blake Lively is a great mother, Blake Lively is a good wife, Blake Lively is this, Blake Lively is that. And so those terms will continue to come up, and if you hashtag those things, those hashtags will continue to come up. So when you press, if you press breast lively is a heifer, well, they'll hashtag Blake, hashtag lively, hashtag heifer, but also they'll hashtag great mother. So you'll press one of those hashtags, and then an article or something to come up to show that she's a good mom, she's a good this or good wife, or any of those things. And they won't be talking about the things that have made her negative, like her tone deaf launch of her liquor brand while she's launching It Ends With Us. So it's very important to understand and to know that this is what they do. And I wanted to come out there and to do this, but I also want to say this. I wonder why that doesn't come up. Oh. Well, we don't worry about that. Let's get out of my Canva. And let me share my screen, because all of that to come up for is that I did want to go over this article. And again, shout out to Miss Marvel on Twitter X for sending this article to me because I do want to go over it. So all of that to say is this is an article from Vulture written by Nate Jones, and it says how to plan a press tour for a canceled man. A look inside the crisis PR firm that craft comeback narratives for disgraced stars like Jonathan Majors. So I want to go over this article. I want to go over it, and let's see what the PR teams and things like that say about how they come up with a way to be able to do crisis management for this particular artist, which is Jonathan Majors. Now, if you're familiar with Jonathan Majors, 2023, he was convicted of misdemeanor assault and misdemeanor harassment on his then girlfriend, Jay Scabari. From that conviction, he was, even before the conviction, he was removed from all of his projects, also including Marvel. He has had about a year off from filming because he had a 52-week, he was sentenced to a 52-week domestic violence counseling. And so this is where we're starting from. And so this article is going to take us through how a crisis management team works to craft a comeback for Jonathan Majors. And y'all hit this like button. Let's see if we can get this so we can read it without having to strain our eyes. Says here, when Magazine Dreams debuted at Sundance in 2023, critics were sure they had seen one of the defining screen performances of the year. The film, a 21st century spin on Taxi Driver, stars Jonathan Majors as a mentally ill bodybuilder, and consensus in Park City was that the performance was liable to cement Majors in his generation's next great talent. Vanity Fair dubbed it a towering act of becoming, while Entertainment Weekly called Majors impossible to look away from. Okay. And they had all of these accolades, all these different publications had all these accolades about what's going on with him. And then in March 2023, he was arrested for then assaulting his then girlfriend. And then his downfall went. He was removed from all of those major projects that he had. You also had things coming out in the press about him. You saw Rolling Stones did an article about 40 people that said that they did not like him, or he was abusive or an asshole. But we never did get those 40 people to get on camera. We also had a lot of different things coming up. And we did see from this particular thing, we did see that where other articles were reporting the information, we did see that Rolling Stone had some kind of crow up their tail about him. And again, this is at the height of the Me Too movement, all of this stuff. And you know, everybody is wanting to be on the right side of things. So we saw Rolling Stone, like every time that there was a positive article, so you saw a crisis management team was in place. Every time you saw a positive article come out on Jonathan Majors, you immediately saw, it'd be 24 hours, you immediately saw Rolling Stone put out an article to combat that. And that happened every time. Every time something came out, there was a negative or something positive, there would be a negative article. You would see Jonathan Majors' team come out with he's in a new relationship. You would see him walking and doing all kinds of stuff, trying to be positive in there, and him being stoic. You started to see the press come out with information in regards to the case. You saw videos come out. You saw all of these little different things that came out through there. So that is how that case had run. And every time, and that's how the starting of my show, Stunt Shows and Shenanigans, because every time something happened, there was always a stunt, there was always a show, and there was always a shenanigan every time you turned around. So whether it be Jonathan Majors' team coming out with some kind of stunt. Then there would be, stunts and shows, and then you would see the detractors come out with something, whether it be a Rolling Stone article or someone on Twitter said something. It was just a whole lot of stuff. But I just wanted to take you through that. And again, it is not for me to try to dissuade you or persuade you on Jonathan Majors. What I'm here to talk about is the PR of it all. I am fascinated about how crisis management teams work to do these things. So let's continue on this article. 2 years after Major's arrest, Magazine Dreams is finally being released, having been picked up by Briarcliff, a small distributor that specializes in distressed cinematic assets, which is interesting. Distressed cinematic assets, because again, this particular film was picked up by Searchlight, and again, after Jonathan Majors was found guilty of misdemeanor assault and a misdemeanor harassment, they dropped the film from their studio, which means Majors is back now too. This month, the actor has embarked on a wide-ranging press tour promoting both the film and his wider comeback. As Major's most sustained moment in the public eye since his conviction, the promo campaign is in all likelihood the fruit of months of behind-the-scene planning by the actor and a team of crisis PR consultants who specialize in what is known as strategic communications. Now, according to Vulture, it says here, I've heard that Majors is working with a firm called the Initiative Group. The company did not respond to requests for confirmation. And probably so, because what we have found out in this Justin Baldoni case is the way that the PR world has been exposed for doing their job, whether or not that we like it or not. If they put out negative information or if they put out positive information, what we have found that Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds case, what we have found is that it has turned Hollywood on its head. And the reason why I say that is because now the inner workings of Hollywood is being exposed. And these people who do PR, whether you like them or whether you don't, it is their job to do this. It is their job to work for clients. But there is just certain things that are happening now, which I think is upending Hollywood. And one of the things is that these PR teams are now becoming vulnerable to being sued for doing their job. So you have the PR teams that are on this Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively case. You have Jones work, and then we have that's by Stephanie Jones, run by Stephanie Jones, and then you have, I think it's Vision. I want to say Vision Quest, but I don't think that's the name of it. But this is the company run by Leslie Sloan. Now, one of the things about this company being run by Leslie Sloan, she started this company with the backing of Harvey Weinstein. And we know about Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement, and he's currently in prison for assault himself. But we see now, and again, they're probably not going to make a statement being for or against whether or not that they're working with Jonathan Majors, simply because nowadays, the way that, like I said, the way that this that Justin Baldoni and that Blake Lively case has upended PR teams and making them pretty much liable for the work that they're doing, I don't think a PR team is going to admit or not admit who their clients were. And they were always, and before this case, they were doing that. They were coming out and they were talking about who they represented because it was a point of pride. But now they're so afraid that they're going to get caught up in some kind of legal scandal. I don't think that they're going to say anything. To get a sense of what this process is like, I spoke to, this is the writer, spoke to a handful of crisis PR executives, some on the record, some on background, to find out the blueprint for planning a press tour for a canceled man. This is going to be good. The field crisis management has exploded recently. He's going to give us some history about this. Some blame Harvey Weinstein for this, other pin it on Ray Donovan and scandal. Many of those I spoke to noted that it was all too easy and profitable for any run-of-the-mill PR firm to rebrand itself as a strategic communication specialist, though they assured me that they themselves were one of the legitimate ones. So they're all going to say that. It becomes something that firms needed to put on their website as a bullet point. And so let me also be clear that uh, crisis management is not only for celebrities. Crisis management are for companies. Crisis management is for several different entities. You could be a private citizen going through some mess, and you need a crisis management team to help you navigate the press and all of those other things. You need a publicist to do that, to help you manage it. Because again, a crisis management firm are basically publicists working in crisis. That's basically what they're doing. And we saw my little PowerPoint about that earlier. And it says here, everybody wants to wear the white hat. Now, that is a reference to Scandal. Again, if you all did not watch Scandal first season, go back, watch the first season. This will give you a dramatized look at how PR firms work to get their clients through a crisis. The experts had their own internal rubrics for determining whether it would be worth taking on a client like Majors. For some, the calculus hinged on whether they had an existing relationship, which would lower the bar for signing on. But ultimately, all said some variation of the same thing. They would have to believe that the canceled man was sincerely committed to becoming better. So, in other words, when they're looking at trying to revamp someone's image, some of the, and again, we're talking about the ones that say that they are legitimate. They would want to believe that that person was truly committed to becoming better, truly committed to working the program that it takes to come better, truly committed to following all the things needed so that they can control the narrative and show the people that this person is worth redemption. It says here, I would want to see how he's taking care of himself, says Danny Durrani, founder of the Durrani Public Relations. Have you gone to therapy? Do you need anger management? Are you over drinking? Says Bart. Many were keen to emphasize that there are some moral lines that they would not cross. If I think the person is lying to me, then I'm not interested in representing them. It's important. And I wanted to kind of go over this article because I do want to make sure that public relations and public relations team, because to me it's an art form. It is something that is fascinating to me, and I want them to get their just dues. I want them to kind of talk through with us. What do they do to what is their vetting process as far as them representing clients? And he's talking about that. So they're having a discussion with their client. They're assessing them. They are vetting them to make sure that if they put them through this type of if the PR team is going to go through this, they want to make sure that the client comes on the other side, controlling the narrative and have a redemption arc. If you remember, I don't think he had one, but you can tell, like, you remember when Charlie Sheen had his crash out years and years ago, and he was talking about Tiger Blood, and he was going off on his ex, and his ex was going off on him. You remember that bad, excuse my language, you remember that bad shit show. And so now crisis managements want to be able to work with somebody. I don't think Charlie Sheen at that time, with his substance abuse allegedly, and all those things that he had going on with him, and the problems that he had with the creator of 2.5 Men, a crisis management team would have been really great for them, great for him, so that the narrative would be controlled, that he's trying to do better, he's trying to do stuff, and it ended up he just had a severe crash out. And you don't see celebrities having those types of crash outs like it is. It's very far few in between. Most hire a PR firm or crisis management firm real quickly to help them navigate uh, navigate their way through the entertainment business, because it does affect them. Them crashing out like that affects whether or not that they get jobs again. It affects their relationship with their public, with their fans. It affects all of these different things. So I think that a PR team is great. I hate that people get PR teams when it's like in a crisis. It would be great to have PR teams if it could be afforded. It would be great to have a PR team to be able uh to help you control the narrative of who you are. So if there's a certain image that you want to portray to the public, it would be great to be able to have that image, even if something happens in your personal life. And I'm not talking about anything bad or criminal, but if something happens in your personal life and you don't want anybody to know about it, uh if you don't want anybody to know about it, a public relations team will be definitely great to help you through this. So it says, if the topic happened to be underage children, I don't want to go near it. So they're just talking about what their non-negotiables are. It says, nearly all were convinced Major had done the work necessary to be a viable rehabilitation project. He's owning it, Neerman says. He's not trying to say that it was a false conviction, that he got screwed over by a jury. That's not entirely true, though. Major says he's barred from publicly commenting on the case. In the 22, he did claim he never hit a woman. So, that's true. But they do feel overall that he is working on redeeming himself. The next thing, and just to be fair, he did say that he's barred from publicly commenting on the case, and that is because he did a settlement with Grace Jabari, and I think that there was some kind of non-disclosure agreement. So let's continue. The next step is to craft a compelling narrative for the client. You only get one real bite at the redemption apple, says Neerman. Ideally, this narrative is grounded in the truth, or at least some version of the truth, which is interesting. This process starts with long, difficult conversations. My strategy is based on empathy, says Engelmeyer. I sit and listen to somebody and really understand and distill what they're saying. Then I have to go figure out the right narrative, excuse me, and how to present it to a broad audience. And again, that's one of the tenets that they do. I have to soul search a bit. I go through a lot of writing exercise, maybe talk with my girlfriend or my kids to see whether or not something that they would roll their eyes at, which is interesting because again, it has to make sense to the common person, because they are the people that are going to be the ones that are going to have to believe it. So if you can concoct some story that is not believable, of course the public is going to be like, come on, man. Come on, man. To a man or woman, the experts praise Majors and his team for telling a clear, concise story. They're using all the hot button words, says Bayard approvingly. He's doing the internal work. He's reevaluating the community that he has. He's working a key balance, acknowledging the past missteps, but then outlining what he's been doing moving forward. Getting Majors there likely required months of intense media training. It looks like a lot of how you prep a candidate before a televised debate, says Neerman, who has consulted on past presidential campaigns. In spring of 2024, shortly after his conviction, he began showing up at red carpets again. He made his first public appearance alongside his new fiancée, actress Megan Good, at the African American Film Critics Association. So they're going through what it looks like to try to rehabilitate a person's image. Now, I know a lot of people in the community was like, he just needs to go away. We don't need to see him again. And then when you get pressed on what does that mean? How does that work? Well, he doesn't need to say anything. He needs to go away. And my question has always been, okay, he gets up and he goes away. And whoever is going through this, and we'll just talk about any actor or actress, they go away. There's time. But as soon as they come back, you're gonna go right back to the stuff that they left the community for in the first place. They left the spotlight for in the first place. So you're going to be asking the same questions 6 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, a year now. You're still going to be asking those same questions that took them out of the spotlight in the beginning. So, I do believe that you should go away. I do believe that, in that process of going away, you need to be working on some things. Now, the time frame, everybody has their different time frame. I'm all well and good for going away for about 6 months to a year. But also in that 6 months to a year, if you're really truly wanting to work on making sure that you're going to get back to the craft that you have or get back to the job that you want to get back to, you're still going to have to do some work, but you're still going to have to show that you are viable to do this job, do the job, and you're still interested in to do the job. All right. So it goes over him popping out in the spring of 2024 about going to the thing. And part of the PR strategy. Now, again, I'm not telling you that I think that their relationship is PR or not. I really don't care. But that is part of the because he has been accused of being very abusive in his relationships, and he pops out in a relationship with someone else. And he's showing that he is capable of being in a relationship. So that is very interesting. That to me is part of it. I don't know personally if I would be using my relationship as a PR part of the PR, but you can definitely see that all of these things that actors and actresses have to go through to rehabilitate their image, that would probably be part of it as well. They did mention that those red carpets are very cruel. A lot of reporters will make crazy comments and ask you crazy questions. They say she's seen many scandal-plagued celebrities pushed into a press tour before they're ready. They storm off for interviews. They look frightened. They stumble their words, and it just sounds like a bunch of baloney. And I will say that initially when you did see them come out, I don't think, one of the things that I had just noticed, and this is just my critique of Jonathan Major, is that for whatever the stuff that he was going through and how he was maneuvering through Hollywood, one of the things or one of the missteps that I think he did was not being very personable or with the interviews and things like that. Now, he does a good interview, but I think that how he talks in the interviews, because he's a really awkward type he's really kind of awkward when he speaks, and you could tell that he's intelligent, so he's kind of long-winded about the things he says. Some answers that require maybe 5 words, he'll give us a whole soliloquy or something like that. I think that he needs to tighten that stuff up. I think he because he's trying to give you the I'm gonna say he's trying to give you the smart answer instead of just give the answer and not try to flood us with all of this. I know he's Yale, I know he's a Yale graduate. I know all of those things, but don't try to flood us with all those big fancy words. It's okay. I mean, you can, but be very concise about how you say certain things. And I think when he was coming out in these original press tours, he felt real awkward and uncomfortable talking about things because these are the questions that are going to be asked. And for me, I think those are the questions that the PR team should have been prepping him for. They're going to ask him about his relationship. They're going to ask him about possibly his past relationships. They're going to ask about how he's feeling now. They're going to ask him, does he atone for any of those things? And I think those are the things where he has to do honest. I think if he's just talking about his feelings, he can do honest answers. He doesn't have to talk about, talking about Grace Jabari. He doesn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that at all. He could say simply, I'm very I feel real bad about how our relationship ended. All of those different things, he can definitely talk about his feelings, but I always get the feeling because he's awkward. I really did wish that the PR team would have worked with him a little bit better about answering questions. Now, I do think that there are some interviews that he did that were great. I think the Breakfast Club interview was good. I did have an opportunity to go watch the Sherry Shepherd interview. I got a mixed bag on that. It was decent. It was decent. I think his Entertainment Tonight interview was good. Uh, it was good. But I still do think that he really needs to get really comfortable about talking about how he feels. We don't need to see him crying all the time. We don't need to do anything like that. But just, if it's something that he can't or he doesn't feel comfortable answering, I really wish he'd just say that. Don't try to come up with some roundabout way to answer the question. Just say, I just don't feel comfortable with answering that right now. Let's see what we got going on. For a celebrity's case who's played out as publicly as Majors has, there is no expectations of friendly press. Since 2015, there is a great need for cancellation content among the media. It is a highly leveraged headline, says Ross, founder of the Johnson Public Relations. Most media is not going to be friendly. And I don't mean that they're mean. I mean they're all going to do a jazzy headline that's going to get them clicks. It's all about clicks and views. And so they're going to do whatever they can to be able to get those clicks and views. And if anything that's going to get you to where that they can cancel you, baby, they're going to, because those things, again, negativity brings people to the clicks. Negativity. If you see stories that are about positivity or anything, they don't get that many views. People don't read those things. They're always looking for the salacious. They're always looking for those things. On a moral stance, you can say that's wrong or whatever, but it is what it is. It just is what it is. Saying you find the friendliest writer is not as accurate as saying you find the appropriate writer. He says, not necessarily someone who will buy a hook, line, and sinker, but who will at least hear you out and not just brush off. And this is why you see a lot of celebrities, they'll have their particular publication that they go to because the publication will be willing to listen to what they say rather than trying to get you in a gotcha moment. Because, you've seen some of these interviews where these reporters, journalism is not like journalism was, let's say, even something about journalism that in the 2000s has changed because now the journalist wants to be part of the story. And so journalism is no longer the same. It's almost like a level of entertainment instead of them just telling the story, giving us the facts and allowing for us to make a decision about what's going on. And we also see with the community, with the public, we seem to not have time. We've got a lot of time that we don't have time for. And what I mean by that is people are quote unquote so busy that they don't take the time to read the information. They don't take the time to read the story. They will make a whole argument over just reading the headline. And a lot of times when you read that headline, what's in the body of the story that sometimes don't match what's going on. They have this headline there just so that you can click it. Or some people, they don't even click it. And, it's not only about the click, it's not only about the view, but it's also the third piece of that is about the engagement. You will see a lot of people engaging with the news headlines, and they have not even read the story. They hadn't sat down, they hadn't read the story at all. And so, again, I think that that's really good to say that you found the appropriate person. And this is the person that will listen to what you say and put your feet to the fire. Okay, I've heard what you said, but what about A? Answer. What about A? What about B? Okay, you said, that you feel repentive about what's going on. What about this? And so that they can be able to report. I respect a story that's balanced. I respect a story that a reporter who asks the fluffy questions, but also asks the hard questions. The questions that may make the person who's answering the questions feel some kind of way, but I appreciate them asking those questions. What I don't appreciate are puff pieces where you're trying to get a click and a view, and the information that you put out, the sources that you give are extremely questionable, and you don't mention that the sources are could be questionable. Now I have a problem with that because the damage will be already done. The damage would already be done. All right. We're going to continue through the article. The world of social media has opened up exciting new avenues for crisis communication. Every journalist in the world can hate you, but if you have 3 million fans who consistently love you, then they're the ones you want to rely on. And that is a good point, because gone are the days now with journalists and journalism where they were the ones who were the gatekeepers of the story. Nowadays, you got a social media page, and I think for Jonathan Majors, I think him not having a personal social media page, he doesn't have to be on all the platforms. He could have just been on one particular platform. I think him not having a social media page, I think him not being able to he doesn't have to be on the page. He can have somebody run the page. But my whole point is, with him not being on social media, him not being this is a whole audience. I don't know if he really knows his audience or not. Because the news is not going to tell you about your audience. You only going to know about your audience is if you're in the best place to engage your audience is social media. Again, you don't have to engage us by telling us everything that you're doing in your, but you should have your own page, personal page, where you're going over all the events of the things that you're doing, some of the things that give you joy, just a little, just you control the peak. You control the peak into your life. Now, again, you don't have to run the page. You can hire somebody to run the page. But I do think that you should have a personal media page that you are putting out information about yourself. Today, publicists can easily back channel with fans who boast significant online followings of their own to get a sense of whether they're willing to help the cause. Not anything underhanded, but you can see if they're willing to look at things that the media hasn't shown them. And sometimes you can pay influencers yet. The going rate anywhere from 5,000 to 100,000. Still, I'll agree there's merit in the old ways, which I do think a good story, a good headline, a good interview on a major network, all of those things are good. But I do think if you are not tapped in to the social media portion of it, you miss a whole lot. Also, it's very good to get people who are in the industry to back you. It says here, the piece also featured quotes from Whoopi Goldberg, Michael B. Jordan, and Matthew McConaughey attesting to Major's character. Once one person has the audacity to support someone in Hollywood, it seems like a lot of people step forward. And I think that was one of the things that I think a lot of people were critical of before, is that no one, he was, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. And no one wanted to step up. And I do understand a lot of that has to do with the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement is like, you are canceled until you're not. You are guilty until you're not. You believe all women, but what we have found with these latest cases of women coming out and stating that stating their stories, and there's some things going on. I think a lot of people are like, now, oh, wait a minute, we're just gonna wait. We're gonna wait to see what's going on, because there's a lot of stuff going on. And even with this case, there's a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of stuff going on that you had to do some critical thinking about. Okay, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's not, he's not all bad, she's not all good. There was all shades of gray going on in there. Do I believe there was abuse in the relationship? Absolutely. 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 But now you have to come in on the back. You have to come in on the other side of that. So again, Majors followed up the Hollywood Reporter story with a full-scale push setting for press junket. He did TV interviews. He had a spot on the Breakfast Club. All of these, he even had an interview where he talked about he wrote a letter to Marvel. All of those different things. Now, I would be remiss to say or not to talk about the fact that, again, Rolling Stones came out. He did the Hollywood Reporter interview Sunday or Monday or whenever that was, when it was. And then I think Monday, the Rolling Stones came out with the audio and all that other stuff. Now, did that hurt him? I think it did. I think it hurt him. I think it hurt him on the situation that, again, he has made a statement or two in the press about not putting his hands on women, and then we hear an audio talking about being aggressive. Now, I will say, and in all full disclosure, something doesn't seem right about that audio. And what I mean is, it seems like there should be more to that audio than 20 seconds. Something doesn't seem right about that audio. Is there a whole piece of that audio? I do know that CNN tried to authenticate the audio, and they couldn't do it. They tried to get with Cheyenne Roundtree. They tried to get with Rolling Stones to do that, and they couldn't authenticate the audio. But nonetheless, it's out there, and it caused issues and it caused problems. Do I think it affected people going to see the movie? I don't know, because the movie was an independent movie in the first place. It was an indie movie in the first place. So I think if they would have, I think what affected the movie or anything like that was time. Because I think if they had put that movie out when they had, I guess they were going to put it out in December of 2023, but he was on trial at that time. So I don't think that would have been an appropriate time, because he wasn't going to be able to do any press or anything for that movie or anything like that. But anyway, I just wanted to go over briefly. I've been on here almost an hour, but I just wanted to go over that article to kind of talk about just some of the mechanics behind the crisis management team and all the things that they do. Again, this article is in Vulture, and you can definitely check it out. Let me get back to the top. And again, it's How to Plan a Press Tour for a Canceled Man, written by Nate Jones. Y'all go check out that article. I want you to go ahead and read that article, but tell me what you think. What do you think about the workings of the PR relationships, PR teams, and crisis management PR teams? Does that interest you all? Can you all kind of see where a PR team's hands has been put in a situation just by the way whether the article is written or how they're responding in press tours and press junkets? Y'all let me know down in the comments. All right, people. Again, I just wanted to give you just a brief insight of what a crisis PR team was, some of the ways that they work with their clients, some of the ways that you can see that they're working with their clients, some of the ways that they have to navigate and change the narrative. Because again, with the Jonathan Majors case, with that audio coming out, it definitely changed the narrative, and it definitely took the wind off the sails of his comeback tour. Do you think he'll recover? Again, I have a video out showing that he has a new project going, so y'all check that out. All right. Y'all, we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.